Hello and welcome everyone to our Township of Uxbridge 2023 budget presentation. I'm Christy Honey, the CAO with the Township of Uxbridge, and I have with me today Mayor Dave Barton, Deputy Mayor Willie Pop, Acting Treasurer Toby Lee, and our department heads. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tonight we're offering a hybrid approach, so we have people who've joined us online, as well as a house full of people here at Town Hall. Thank you so much for taking the time with us this evening. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the budget process, 2023-24 strategic priorities. We're going to go over tax allocation and spending, talk through some of the fiscal challenges we need to balance, asset preservation, and some of our proposed capital projects. There'll be time at the end of this presentation for questions and answers. So when we get to that place, please unmute your mic and raise your virtual hand. The budget presentation, our budget process does not start in November. Department heads start talking and planning about the budgets as early as soon as it's passed. So from February through to September, we are talking about priorities and budget implications, which leads us to setting the budget timeline in the fall, typically October, drafting the budget in November, hosting our public open house, which we are doing so today, and then bringing to council the proposed draft budgets to review and deliberate. The council will review and adopt and approve the budget in January or February of 2023. Our strategic priorities from 2019 to 2022 fell into 5 big buckets, mainly offering quality public services, growing our economy, improving our ability to get around, engaging our community, and fostering a safe and sustainable future. Each of these big picture priorities have goals and ongoing initiatives assigned to them. And it's really important that we also recognize that we partner with outside organizations and use grant funding to also achieve these strategic objectives. We rely heavily on volunteers and our advisory committees to help us prioritize and further the agenda to enact on these projects. Let me turn it over to Mayor Dave now to talk about how property tax is calculated.
Thank you very much, Christy, and thanks to everyone who's watching this. So, folks, the way that we fairly distribute property taxes is it starts with MPAC. So MPAC assess every property across Ontario and assess a value. That value compares your home and your value to every other property in Ontario. Then we combine all the tax rates for the region of Durham, the Township of Uxbridge, and then the province of Ontario for the education taxes. And that's how we come up with our mill rate or the multiplier to come up with what your taxes will be. If ever you disagree with your MPAC assessed value, you can reach out to MPAC and you can file a notice of reassessment and they can work that out with you. But that is all done by MPAC. Every class of property has a different tax structure. So tonight we're going to talk about residential and then commercial, industrial. So for the majority of our properties, which are residential, 58% of the property taxes that you pay go to the region of Durham, 28% go to the Township of Uxbridge, and then 15% go to the province for education. The average tax bill in the Township of Uxbridge is $6,378. $1,786 of that stays in Uxbridge, $3,698 of that goes to the region, and then $957 go to education. And with the local property taxes that we receive here in the Township of Uxbridge, they go to a plethora of services. So we have 329 kilometers of roads. So if you think of that snowstorm that we're going to be having fairly soon here, that means that our public works team have to travel about just under 700 kilometers to clear that one snowfall. We have 52 kilometers of sidewalks. We have 46 bridges and culverts, 25 stormwater management facilities. And then we get into the more of the fun stuff, things like our public library. So we have 128,856 library visits, which is just phenomenal. We have people that come in and use our library computers, use our Wi-Fi, all kinds of kids programs, book clubs, and everything else at the library. Something that I'm really passionate about is our trails. So we have 35 kilometers of trails that are part of our township trails, as well as all the trails that are south of Uxbridge and the Trans-Canada Trail that heads northeast. We also, in our pool and rec programs, we've got 2,500 public swimming participants. We have 2,223 swim lessons and leadership participants. Then we've got public skatings. Our arena's busy most days. We have just under 1,200 summer campers, and then a number of other things. Your property taxes also pay for all of our cultural facilities, the museum, and then a really big one is our fire and emergency services. Many of you are aware, but we have a part-time fire department, so who are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So though that team of incredible individuals, they get 346 emergency calls per year. So that's just under one a day. And sometimes those are, a fire alarm goes off in a building that's vacant, and then other times it's an event like our storm that we had in May. So they have to be ready for almost anything. The other thing to keep in mind is we have our development services group, and they issue all of our building permits. I'm going to talk a little bit about regional services, and that's where 58% of your property taxes go. So about 30% of that goes to policing. Then we've got social services, our roads and bridges that are regional, Durham Region Transit, economic development, garbage and recycling, paramedics, and then it goes down from there. But there's a very significant amount of work that is done by the region of Durham, and myself and Councillor Bruce Garrett are your representatives down there. So if you have regional questions, don't be afraid to reach out. I'm going to pass this over to Willie Pop, and he's going to talk about more of the township facilities. Go ahead, Willie. And we are going to adjust the camera.
Thank you, Mayor Dave. As we look at the 2023 budget challenges and pressures from a financial perspective, there is a significant headwinds on some areas. I think that's no surprise that we are experiencing a lot of challenges with regards to inflation. With the inflation comes many price increases. Our capital investments are challenging because with those price increases makes it very difficult to budget within that as we look at those. Government grants, now we do benefit from regional, federal, and provincial grant funding that helps us make our way through to a budget on an annual basis. And we've been very blessed in the past. What we believe to be the case is that these grants, and you'll see a slide from our acting treasurer shortly showing that many of these grants are not quite as lucrative or drying up compared to what they've been provided in the past. Obviously, our tax rate levels are a concern, and we want to try to make those, as least at a least amount as possible. And as we look at other pressures along the way, development is always an interesting discussion in town, and how much is the right amount of growth. We want to look at the residents' expectations and our service programs that we provide to our residents. And being able to do that, we need to have a look at our staff capacity and what they can effectively manage at the same time. Strategic projects are something that we try to do and make sure that we have, all the appropriate legislation and regulations underway. These all contribute to significant, obvious challenges and pressures as we try to navigate our budget. Now, how do we get to the budget number that we benefit? You'll see from this pie chart that by class, if I started at approximately the 2 o'clock mark, farmland and managed forests provide about 2.2% of where we derive our tax dollars from. I'll skip over the next one for a second as we look at commercial dwellings. So those are the businesses and shops in town. It's just under 9% that we receive that way. I'll pile industrial and pipeline together, which gives us just under 4%. And that big, large blue piece accompanied by that yellow wedge that I didn't mention earlier, but that I would get back to, as you can see, that brings up 85% of where our tax dollars come from. So that what that says is our residents are large, by and large, the main source of how we get our property tax dollars. As we look at how that impacts us on a monthly basis, if we look at the monthly cost, in the green is what our operating budget is and where we get that. In blue is our capital budget. So I'll focus on the green first. Public Works on an average household based upon $600,000. So if your house is worth in value as through MCAP, as Mayor Dave alluded to, was $600,000, Public Works is costing you $43. Our general government, 27, fire, 12, arena and parks, 12, down to library services, 7, rec and tourism and culture, 6, and so far and so on down the list. If we look at the capital side, again, Public Works has a large piece of that as well at $23. Our general government is 2, 3 to fire, 3 to arenas, and it goes down from there. So if you look at this, obviously operating budget is something that we have to work on and use to operate the township on each and every day. And you can look at it and say, why don't we just reduce down our capital costs, as a means to bring down our budget restrictions? But we believe that to be a little bit of a bad idea. And why that is if you think about anything that you wanted to or need to purchase for your household at this time, say you needed to purchase a vehicle, it's probably a better idea to purchase in current versus future dollars, where quite often prices tend to go up over time. If we look at our assets from the township, we've the estimated replacement value of our township assets is $468 million. I'll back up for a second, because if you look at the top of the chart, it says this is as of December 31st, 2020. Willie, why are we talking about the 3 years back? Well, we've got a company called Hempson, which evaluates the replacement costs of our assets, and that'll be happening for us again in 2023. We do this on a 4-year basis, so that's where we're at right now. With that in mind, we're approximately at a deficit on infrastructure of $55.3 million. So if we look at where we're at, looking to the right again, big blue, roads and related areas is 40% of our costs, along with looking down at bridges and culverts, another 5, storm sewers is 18. So if we look at that piece and looking back to the chart at the back end that we just saw, the lion's share of where our spending was, both capital and operational, was largely there. And here's what you can see is why. Because 63% of our actual resources, of our actual assets, are actually the lion's share of what we have as needed. The $55.3 million, you look at it and say deficit spending, and Toby, our acting treasurer, is going to talk to this a bit about how we do that and why we can't do that. This is quite common. So 55.3% is the replacement, is what we would have to look at as to replacing it back to a pristine shape. This is common for most municipalities across North America, in fact, to be in this state. So we're not surprised by this. And what I will say is what we're doing to mitigate this problem comes up on our next slide. So the township, since 2014, has an asset preservation reserve that we've been dropping money into. So back in 2014, that amount of money that we were dropping into this fund, just getting to my notes here as we move along, was $96,000. Fast forward to 2022, this amount is up to $1.66 million, so a large amount there. And what we do is we spend this money on an annual basis to top up, spread it across our infrastructure projects to ensure that we're maximizing and bringing down that $55.3 million deficit on a regular basis. We're very proud of doing, we're very proud of doing this, and we'd like to do that in the future. We don't have a number there for you at this point in time, because that will be discussed over the next couple of weeks in our budget process. Next, I'd like to invite up Lucas Gillum and Amanda Ferraro to talk about some of the capital projects that we're doing.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Pop. So I'll go through a few of the proposed major capital projects for Public Works here. So starting with Cemetery Road, that'll be the second of three phases of construction for that road there, including storm sewer, curb and gutter, and road reconstruction. Next, we have Planks Lane from Main Street South to Marietta. That's another major reconstruction project with storm sewer, curb and gutter, multi-use path, and a sidewalk. Concession 3 from Davis Drive to Sanford Road. That'll be a resurfacing project. Davis Drive from Concession 2 to Concession 3. That's an overlay project. And Scottport, Avonlea Road, and Harrison Drive are all grind and paves up in Leesdale. Next, moving on to stormwater. So a major project that we're undertaking is South Balsam Street stormwater pond redesign, with the construction to take place in 2023 proposed. And then we have 2 bridge repairs on the Uxbridge East Gwillimbury town line, both south and north of Zephyr Road. And now I'll turn it over to Amanda Ferraro.
Thanks, Lucas. Okay, so just talking about some of our major parks projects. So next year we will be doing the Goodwood Ball Diamond. So that's replacing the existing ball diamond in Herald Park, and bringing that diamond up to something that I know all the residents will love. And then a major project at Elgin Park, which involves our universal playground. So that's making the playground fully accessible. And part of that project also has winterizing the Elgin Park washroom, making a path of inclusion, a new pavilion, and some additional lights. So lots happening in Elgin Park. And then thirdly, for parks, we are doing a new playground in Siloam Park. Each year we take turns on a different area of town, and we invest in a new playground. So for 2023, that playground will be Siloam Park. For the library, we will be doing some repointing and masonry work on the building. This year we did all the lower sections of the library, and next year we will be doing all the upper parts of the library. So that is a 2-year project, working on the outside of the building and restoring the outside masonry work back to a level that it should be at. Additionally, we'll be looking at the book stacks and shelving, and this is in the main floor at the fiction and nonfiction section of the library, and we'll be replacing those book stacks with new book stacks that will assist with accessibility, and will replace the old ones that are starting to look a little tired and really need to be replaced. And then lastly, the arena, we are buying a new ice servicing machine. So that would be like an Olympia or a Zamboni. And we do that as well. Every 4 years, we replace one ice servicing machine. So that will happen next year as well. And I will pass it on to Toby. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Okay, so this slide shows the breakdown between the revenues and expenditures. So for 2022, our revenues and expenditures equaled $31 million. Just for a little context, the light blue lines on the expenditure side are for capital and the dark blue are for operations. Municipalities cannot have a deficit. Oh, sorry about that. Municipalities cannot have a deficit, which means the total revenues need to equal the total expenditures. That is why we sometimes need to increase the tax revenue to match the expenditures requested. The largest revenue source is the taxes for the Township of Uxbridge. We have been lucky to have, for the last couple of years, received some great grants. However, these are not guaranteed. The largest expenditures are public works, which includes road maintenance, winter control in operating, and the roads, bridges, and culverts for capital. The second largest is general government, which includes clerks, animal control, and treasury. So this is a slide of showing this the operational grants or operating grants from 2013 to 2022. For 2020 and 2021, we received a large amount of grant money related to COVID, but that stopped for 2022. Just a couple examples for the operating grants that we have received. So we received some grant money for the Seniors Community Grant, which we published the Bridge the Gap brochures. Canada Summer Jobs, which allowed us to hire local students during the summer. Rural Economic Development, which is the RED grant. And also received Federal Economic Development Agency grant for the tourism to continue work on our downtown revitalization. We also received Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, OMFP, to support the local priorities and needs of Uxbridge. This slide shows us the sources of capital grants that we've received over the last couple of years. A couple of the grants that we've received are the Canada Community Building Fund, which is better known as the gas tax. And it's for the government has committed to maintaining this current level of funding to support infrastructure investments to our local community. As well, we've received the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, which are funds for our capital expenditures for our core infrastructure such as roads, bridges, water and wastewater. We've also received a couple great modernization grants this year, which include money to develop the cloud permit, which is our online system, and other grants include upgrades to our fields of Uxbridge, including lighting, building the Universal Playground in Elgin Park. That's it for me. So I just want to say thank you to all of our generosity from our community partners. So a couple of the ones that we've received are for Skate Pump Park track and also the Lions Clubs. They fundraise for our Universal Playground in Elgin Park. So we want to thank them for all of their fundraising because it certainly helps us create more opportunities in the community. And lastly, this is our slide. If anybody has any questions that we could answer, we have our senior management here that can answer some questions if there are any out there. No questions.
So, you know what, I have one. Sorry, Paul. And it's a public works question for Lucas. And I just want him to talk a little bit about gravel conversion. And what the plans are for this year and why we're doing it. So anyway, that's on the spot.
Yeah, so for gravel conversions, each year we take roughly 6 to 8 kilometers of currently gravel roads. And it's a 3-year process to transition it from gravel to hardtop. So the first year we put 6 inches of gravel, then the second year another 6 inches of gravel, and then the third year we either do a surface treatment or paving. And it the cost to upkeep gravel road are much higher than the costs for a surface treated road. So in the long run, it'll be more beneficial and efficient for us. And yeah, I guess that's where we're at.
Thanks for this.
Okay, is there any other questions, Christy? Nope. Okay. So the next steps include our open house, which which we posted late November 2022, obviously. Our proposed budget will be posted on the web early December. And then we have 4 scheduled budget review meetings, which are December 13th, December 15th, January 19th, and January 26th. We have budget approval, which is anticipated either late January or early February. And our approved budget for 2023-2024 will be posted on the web, hopefully in February 2023. And I will invite Christy to make some closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Toby. And thank you so much to all of you that could join us this evening, both online and in the room. This is a very important part of our overall budgeting process, and your time and attendance this evening is greatly appreciated. Wish you all the very best and have a great evening. Thank you.